Welcome, I'm Dani Walker. Today I'll be sharing with you my top 10 favorite multicolored evening gowns from the past 5 years at Miss Universe. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and hitting the notifications bell, as well as sharing the episode with friends. I really appreciate you supporting the channel. Before we get right into this, I want to say that I was looking for the Miss Universe preliminary competition from 2020 and I could not find it. It looks like it was deleted off of YouTube. So with that being said, I may have missed some gowns, so please keep that in mind for this episode. In 2017, Zambia wore a black and gold evening gown, which is a very, very unique color combination in pageants. It's just something that we don't see a lot of. Now, this fabric in itself looked like some sort of applique, and then there was almost like a vine or a leaf pattern over it. I don't know how intentional that was or if that just happens to be the design of this fabric, but it was very, very unique. And I do want to say that Zambia fit into this gown perfectly. That's one thing that I think was overlooked for her for this gown, just because, as we know, Miss Universe, very competitive. It's easy to get distracted by all the rhinestones. So when we look at gowns that aren't covered in rhinestones, we can miss them from time to time. But I think that the fit of this gown was lovely, and I really liked the tulle that was draped down the back of the gown and that connected to her wrists. It just made it more. It just added more to this gown, and it was more attention grabbing because of those tulle pieces. Quick shout out to Miss Universe Sri Lanka 2018. She is a sweetheart and I love her. And she just happened to wear a multicolored gown to Miss Universe. Now, here is another gown style that I just feel, because 2018 was such an exceptional year, that we really couldn't appreciate this evening gown. The body of this dress was remarkable. There are so many different colors woven into it, specifically towards the neckline. It's kind of reminiscent to me of the stained glass gown that Gigi Hadid wore on the red carpet. And so that's kind of what it's giving me those vibes of if we're looking at the bust of the gown. But the skirt of the gown, the overskirt, has multicolored pieces of purple and almost like this teal type of color. It reminds me a little bit of Esmeralda from the Disney movies, because she had something like that. It was like teal and purple. It was a really beautiful color combination, but this was a really nice style that I think was overlooked. If you watch my channel because you're a pageant contestant that wants to improve their interview, then make sure to click the description and check out Rehearsed to Relatable, where I can help you to develop a personal brand that's gonna make you memorable in the interview room. In 2017, Austria wore what I would consider to be probably my 5-year-old self's dream gown, because I used to love those colors as a kid. There were purples and pinks and light blues. It's such a really girly combination of colors that we see. And one thing that I've noticed about multicolored gowns now at Miss Universe is it tends to be a floral gown. If it's going to be multicolor, there's some sort of floral appliques. And I think that that makes sense, because flowers usually have a lot of colors when we think of bouquets, and it's really easy to mix those colors up and make it make sense for an evening gown. So this was a really fun one, though. We saw, like I said, lots of floral appliques, and I really like the multicolored stoning as well. I think it added a little bit extra. And then it was interesting to see the mixture of the pieces that were on the train, and then also that they were lined in multicolored ostrich feathers. So really fun, ultra girly gown to see at Miss Universe. By the way, don't forget to share your favorite multicolored evening gown from the past 5 years at Miss Universe in the comments. Since multicolored gowns are pretty few and far between, I want to include 2017's Sweden in this episode. So this is a mainly sheer gown. The shape of the gown is something we see quite often in pageantry. She has this off-the-shoulder neckline with a nice low V. The gown looks a little bit sheer, but there is a mixture of white and then blue flowers on this gown. And then I really couldn't tell, because of the videography, if there are indeed multicolored stones on this gown. If you know more about this style, then just comment below to let us know what you know. Several of you asked me why Miss Universe Nepal 2018 was not in previous gown episodes. Well, it's because I decided to put her in this one. This evening gown was unique. It looks like it was sequenced with white sequins or an ivory sequins, and then a gold piece of fringe and then also some gold rhinestones. And that's why I wanted to include it in this episode instead of in my gold gowns episode, because I thought it was just a little bit more fitting. But what I liked about this was the placement of the fringe across the chest, because it really reminded me of a sash when you compete. So it's just a nice little touch that I enjoyed, but it's beautiful. She did place that year at Miss Universe, and it's obvious to see why she did stand out in this gown. In 2019, Chile was one of my favorite contestants going into the preliminary competition, and she ended up wearing a very unique evening gown for prelims, and I don't know if she planned on changing it for finals, but a lot of people had mixed reviews on this gown. I thought, though, it was stunning on her. It was fitted to perfection. And I will say that it's not easy to wear multicolored gowns, especially a completely rainbow gown. But what I liked about this one, and the reason that all the colors didn't bother me in the slightest, was because they did such a great job blending the colors seamlessly. And these colors weren't very bright or loud. They were still a little bit soft, which I think allowed her to shine more than the gown itself. In a way, I feel like that's a key to doing a multicolored gown really well, is the subtlety of it and making sure that when you're gonna be using different colors that they blend well into one another. If you follow the channel, you know that this episode is a part of a bigger series. So if you're really enjoying this series, comment gown down below. 2021's Haiti was almost in another episode that I created. I really wasn't sure where to put her, so I decided to put this gown in this episode because of the multicolors. So her gown was yellow and orange, and the way that I think of this piece is like a sunset or a sunrise gown. It kind of depends on your perspective. Which way do you think of it? Let me know in the comments. But this gown also was used at Miss Supranational before Miss Universe, and so when I saw it at Miss Universe, I thought, why does this look so familiar? And then I thought back and remembered, oh, I really loved her at Miss Supranational, and she got to use this gown again. And why not? This is such a great choice. The fit is perfect on her. I like the neckline, and then that really open side slit was very on trend for 2021. So it was the perfect choice for her and one of my absolute favorite multicolored gowns. Here's a queen that I know a lot of people were shocked not to see in earlier episodes. I know, another one. Okay, so India's gown in 2020 was gorgeous. And what blows me away is I'm not even sure how this gown was constructed. So it goes from gold to white, but I'm curious, is the actual gown white and then they really just blinged it up with gold, or are these two pieces of fabric? Because I cannot even see where the gold starts and where the white ends on this gown. But aside from the color of it, the fit for her body was absolutely perfect. I remember commenting on this and just being so happy that we saw India in what I would consider to be a safe gown for Miss Universe, but still, it was done so well, and she ended up advancing and placing into that top 5. So what a beautiful choice for her. In 2020, Andrea Mesa wore a multicolored gown. And this actually didn't surprise me, because if you followed her national competition, she wore a very simple, almost like mermaid type style of gown, and it was just completely encrusted in multicolored rhinestones, which made it really unique. And so when I saw this evening gown, I thought back to her national competition, and I thought back to how we often see one element of a contestant's national gown being carried over to the international competition, and we saw that here. But the gown right here, remarkable, done so well. You can see that there's blues and yellows and oranges and greens, and there's all different colors in this gown, but the way that they were mixed together at a distance, it just looks like it's glistening. So I love this. I love that on-trend, really open side slit. The neckline was unique as well, and of course with that neckline, it was perfect to complement her gorgeous face and pull that hair back. All of this. We're down to dress number 10, and this was a really tough choice for me because I do love Andrea's gown so much. I thought that the multicolored stones were just really something obviously we don't see a lot of at Miss Universe. But this gown for me, it's iconic. I can remember the moment she stepped out on stage with it. So my number one multicolored gown for this episode is South Africa's Zozibini Tunzi, who won the Miss Universe title in 2019. And I feel like there's probably quite a few of you out there who would agree with me on this. This gown, oh my gosh, the construction of it, it's liquid beaded, and I think what really added to the gown is that she talked about the meaning behind it, that the colors of the gold or the browns and the blues were reminiscent and reminded her of South Africa and the landscape. And so I thought that the added meaning made it even better. But really look at the details of this gown. It had two layers to it if you really look at it. So we have, yes, the skirt, and then the skirt leads up to that bodice and the bust. And the bust itself has designs that flow up it, okay? Almost like, I guess you could say they're almost like waves going up. And then though, there's a separate neckline and separate sleeves, and there's all this draping of beads over the other part of the bust and bodice, which is already beaded. So I felt like the layering is what took this gown to a whole other level. And if you look at the part underneath, if you look at the bust, basically it's kind of sheer, and then it has some beading. And so then that extra draping of beads on the top of that ended up providing a little bit more coverage. And I think it made it just a little bit more Miss Universe appropriate. And so there's just really, to me, this gown, I haven't seen anything like it. Well done. Well done, South Africa. Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you really love gown episodes, then I would suggest you check out the last one I created about the top 10 best silver evening gowns. And also, if you want to see even more, there's a playlist dedicated to evening gowns that you can check out too. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope that you had as much fun as I did reliving these gorgeous gowns.